want you to look at all of the closings throughout the year of 2025 and as much of 2024 as you can. And the reason why is because I want you to look at the source more than anything. Where have your deals come from? Because what you'll do is that you'll analyze all these deals and all these closings. And even if you only had 5 closings, okay, in the last 12 months, even if you had 2 closings, whatever it is, what I want you to do though is I want you to look at the source of all of these closings. And I want you to put it next to it. Like, so you have a spreadsheet, you have an address, you have a price, you have how much you made for the deal, and the source. And then you're going to do a little breakdown, a little total on the side that basically just says, hey, this closing, this amount of closings or 2 closings came from this source. X amount of closings came from this source. This is how much money each of these sources made me. Because now you can actually make business decisions. Because if you see, hypothetically, you had 5 closings, okay, in the last trailing 18 months. All of this year, all of last year, you've had 5 closings. And let's just say of the 5 closings, 4 of them all came from one source. Let's say 4 of them came from cold calling. 4 of them came from cold calling, and 1 of them was a referral. That means 80% of your business comes from cold calling, 20% of your business comes from referrals, okay? And maybe you have 1 deal under contract right now, and you're like, what can I do to improve? That 1 deal also came from cold calling. Well, clearly you can see that a very large percentage of your business is coming from cold calling. Then you want to start analyzing how much time you're actually spending on cold calling. Because hypothetically, if you're spending, let's just say, 2 hours a day on cold calling, 10 hours a week, but 80+% of your business that has closed has been cold calling. Imagine what would happen if you spent 4, 5, or 6 hours cold calling and you tripled or at least doubled the amount of hours you spend cold calling. So what I'd recommend is that whatever source is the majority of your closings, because there's typically going to be one that's at least 50% roughly, and you take that and you analyze all of the numbers and you figure out what is the majority of your closings, where is it coming from, and you find that the majority of your closing, or at least 50%, is coming from one thing, and then maybe a mix for the other. What I would do is that I would 2 or 3 or 5x or 10x or 20x the effort of that one majority. Because if you just took all your energy and effort, as an example with cold calling, and let's just say that 2 hours a day on average is equaling 80% of your business, which has equaled, let's say, 4 closings in the last 18 months, we're saying in this hypothetical example, that would give you the idea that if you went to 4 hours, that would give you 8 closings in an 18-month period of time. If you did 6 hours a day, that would give you 12 closings within the next 12 or 18 months. What happens here is that with making just a slight adjustment and spending a majority of the time on the thing that it's actually making you money. Now, this is for anything. So hypothetically, if it was flip-flopped, in 80% of your closings over the last 18 months, hypothetically, or even the last 6 months, 80% of your closings, let's say you closed 5 deals since the beginning of the year, and 80% of those, 4 of the 5, came from referrals or sphere of influence, then guess what you should be spending? Let's just say that every single week you spend 2 hours a day cold calling and 30 minutes a week on referrals. 30 minutes a week is turning into 4 closings. So it's like, okay, well, you want to just infinitely, you want to triple down, quadruple down on whatever source, whatever it is. Okay, whatever that source is, you want to 5 or 10x the amount of effort you're putting into that one thing, right? Because if hypothetically, I notice, like for our team, a large percentage of the business is coming from cold calling. And I noticed that a long time ago. So we started to figure out ways that how can I get my guys to start making the most possible cold calls that an individual can make. So an average guy on our team makes between 5,000 and 15,000 calls a month. What happens is that we found that an agent who does a few things will see a large return on time investment, okay? But the few things are, for us, obviously, cold calling. Okay, one thing, cold calling. An agent who makes at least 4 hours a day worth of cold calls typically will close at least 4-ish deals a year. Second, an agent on average who generates at least 3 true offers a week will do at least 2 to 3x that per year. Right? So if they're doing 3, however many offers they're getting per week, they're probably going to close something between 2 and 3x that per year. So if you're getting 3 offers a week, they're going to close between 6 and 9 transactions a year. So we know that by following these metrics based on past experience and past performances and metrics that we've tracked, all that we have to do is support our agents to getting at least 3 offers written up per week, which means how many times do they have to pitch a deal? Obviously they have to keep going until they get these offers. And they also are making 4 hours a day worth of of prospecting calls, like cold calls. that individual has a very high likelihood of closing between 4 and 9 transactions a year. And if we can control the price point, okay, by the lead list that we pull, if we can control our price point and try to keep our average sales price to 2.5, 3 million on average, that means every check we're typically making 100, at five, if 2 million is at 5% is 100 grand, 2.5 million at 5% is 125,000, 3 million at 5%, because we're averaging roughly like 5.25% right now this year. Pretty good. So at 3 million on average, right? We just, just even in the last few weeks, like literally we just got a $4.475 million deal accepted for 6% commission. We just got a $10.5 million deal accepted. Actually, we're only going to make about 2.5 points on that $10.5 million deal. We just got a deal accepted for 2.8 million at 5.5%. Just this week we got another deal locked up at 390,000 at 6% commission. We got another one. I mean, like I can go on and on and on here, and this is just in the last 3 weeks, probably 4 or 5 others that I'm forgetting. But the point is, like, when you've got all these deals going together and you can average, at least 5% commission per deal, you have a much higher likelihood of, having a very large month, right? Or a very large quarter or a very large year, right? But this is only coming from the fact that we've been tracking our metrics for a very, very long time. For everyone here, one thing you're going to do is, again, you're going to create that list. So everything from since the beginning of the year, all the sources, and I would even include last year because it'll give you a better metric. All the sources, break it down by source. Whatever source was at least 50%, I want you to triple down on that source. Okay, at least triple down, maybe 4 or 5x down on that source. That means clear your schedule of all the other bullshit and spend more time doing the one thing. Number 2, the mistake most people make, especially in the real estate business, is that they try to do this business on their own. Now, I'm not a huge fan of trying to tell every single person here that you need to build a big team. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying, though, is that every single person on this call, if you're making at least $100,000 a year, you should hire a transaction coordinator. Now, here's the beautiful thing. I hired a transaction coordinator at the very beginning of my career, and it changed my business forever. My first transaction coordinator took me from doing 1 deal a month to 3 deals a month. So I went from doing like $5,000 or $8,000 a month to $20,000 a month. That was my first transaction coordinator, and she was a 70-year-old woman, and I paid her $300 to $400 per closing, okay? So I didn't even pay her out of pocket. It was a very, very good win-win situation. My next hire, okay, was a full-time transaction coordinator. Now I started making $20,000 a month, and then I brought on somebody that I started paying $18 an hour, and she was full-time. She was 40 hours a week or 30 hours a week, I think, maybe to start. But within 90 days, I went then from $20,000 a month to $60,000 a month. And what ended up happening is that I was able to delegate the activity and these tasks that do not make me money. So instead of me doing listing agreements, somebody else did it. Instead of me coordinating tours, somebody else did it. Instead of me coordinating and managing the transaction with attorneys, somebody else did it. All these little small things, managing my email, somebody else did it. All those things, like guys, like I don't even know the last time I coordinated a tour. I don't know the last time I coordinated like photos for a listing. I don't know the last time that, I handled some of these tasks, which is a very normal task, but it's been delegated for so long in my business, I can't remember the last time I did it. Where I think every year, just as an example, right, the amount of times where I drafted my own commission bill, okay, I think is less than maybe 2 times. 2 times or less a year, where it's sort of just like I have to get it done quickly, and my assistant's away. So it's like these little things where so many of us spend an hour, 2, 3, 5, 10, 20 hours a week doing will save you and give you the ability to then take all that time and then dump it back into your business in lead generation and lead follow-up. So many people, right, make the mistake of not hiring fast enough, not soon enough, where all you need to do is you can pay somebody $300 to $500 per closing, where they can manage 100% of your transactions for you. Very simplistic. Now, Jacob, you're saying, what happens if someone has not closed a deal yet? Great question. Thank you. So this reflection here then will be more so on you looking back at all of your calendars. This is a great, great thing. What I want you to do is, if you have not closed a deal yet, I want you to take every week, you're going to look back at your calendar and look at every single week, what you've done, okay? And comb through it. And you're going to total everything. How many appointments you went on, how many calls or how many hours you've spent calling, right? Tracking all your metrics, how many calls you've been making, how many conversations you've been having, how many leads you've generated since the beginning of the year, all of it, Okay. Same thing, even if, again, if even if you close deals, you should be tracking your metrics, right? But you're going to look at all your metrics. But if you haven't closed anything, it's important that you more look at your calendar, because what it's also going to do is that you're going to be looking at all your metrics, which is your calls, your conversations, your leads, your how many starter offers you've submitted, how many true offers you've submitted, what your buyers list looks like, how many leads you generate, all that kind of stuff, right? And by looking at all that, and then you look at your calendar, you'll have a very clear idea and say, hey, what's working, what's not working. Clearly, what I'm doing up to this point has not been working, is the point. Because what you've done so far, if you've generated absolutely no closing since the beginning of the year, there are things in your business that are not working. Now, there will be things in your business that probably are working, but you can't tell that they're working, right? Without tracking the metrics, such as, how many calls right now, Jacob, if you want to even come off mute and we can chat about this, because this will be very important for us to talk about. Do you have your metrics? Do you have the amount of calls you made, the amount of conversations you had, the amount of leads you've generated, any of that?
My dialer has generated, I can look at that and see my calls, how many people answer, meaning conversations.
Yep.
Or leads. Yeah, my leads are tagged.
How many leads have you generated since the beginning? We're saying since Jan 1?
I don't have a number on me, but
Roughly.
I've written many offers, had few deals in escrow, they all fell out, and written many offers. The buyer's list has grown tremendously.
When did you start?
I started the business in sales. I started about 8 years ago.
Okay, but I'm saying like in this industry.
In sales in this part of the business, about 8 years.
Okay, so I'm saying, but just for whatever reason, you just haven't closed something this year, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. How'd you do last year?
Let's say last year was 200.
200 grand. Okay, cool. So I would just tell you to look at and analyze what worked last year. Do you feel like, just out of curiosity, do you feel like there's any major differences other than saying the word, like more internally and in your business, not interest rates? What has changed the most in your business since last year?
I think consistency. It's hard to be consistent. The market has changed a little bit.
Define consistency. And the market, you can argue the market's changed.
To make sure, let's say the other times you gave this class, you mentioned a lot, how many calls to make, how many times, make sure that you're speaking with somebody a day. I think I focus more on making 100 calls a day. I haven't been focusing on how many, making sure that I'm staying on the phones until I make a certain amount of appointments, or making sure I spoke to a certain amount of people. I think I was just focusing on that 100 calls a day. And consistency, making sure that you're making those calls every day. Let's say if somebody has a family and, there's one day one kid is sick, or one day and one kid has a doctor's appointment, meaning there's always something that comes up, maybe that disrupts your week, making sure that you're staying consistent no matter what. Maybe their dog died, I don't know, there's always something that comes up, and just making sure you stick on the
so let's talk about this. So let's say like this. Number one, 100 calls a day doesn't mean anything. Like, it is an irrelevant metric. Anything that you've thought or referenced or in and around 100 calls a day is an irrelevant metric, because you can make 100 calls and not speak to anybody, right? Because it's not telling in regards to how many people you spoke to, how many leads you generated, anything else, right? You know what I mean? So like 100 calls, right, dials per day is an irrelevant metric. So it's like, if you were going to track anything, I would tell you, don't worry about how many calls you make. I don't care if you have 10 calls a day, but you spoke to 10 people and then you generated 10 leads. That's a better day, right, than cold calling 100 people and not having a pickup. 100 calls a day is an irrelevant metric. So whatever belief system that you have that says 100 calls a day is moving your business forward, it's not. It's not enough at all to say that making 100 calls a day is moving your business forward. Now, it will lead to probably at some point other results that will move your business forward. But 100 calls a day is like getting out of the bed in the morning. It's an irrelevant thing. I would hope you get out of the bed in the morning. I would hope you make 100 calls probably at least a day, right? But what's more important is then what you do, right? So it's like, on the calls, what's happening? How many conversations are you having? How many leads are you generating? Because I have people now that, like, on average, I have a couple guys where like they might only be generating 15 or 20 leads a month from calling, but they're going to make 300 grand this year. And these are 20-something-year-old guys. I mean, these aren't, 10-year veterans. You know what I mean? Been in the business 2 years, but they just know the process and they stick to the fucking process, and they know, hey, I need to generate 1 to 2 leads a day. And they work Monday through Friday. They don't even work a weekend most of the time. They would generate 1 to 2 leads a day, but they get one-ish true offer every day. Those two metrics combined is freaking beastly, right? Like that's where you can easily can like make sure that you will make a good amount of money every year. Because if you're generating at least one lead every single day and you get one true offer every single day, you're probably going to close a deal a month.